All right, what a crazy Xfinity race that was at New Hampshire. First half of the race was relatively calm. Second half of the race comes around, it's just complete chaos and literally half the field, DNF'd. So hopefully you were able to make it on the green with that slate. I know it was pretty chaotic. So we'll shift gears now and we will talk about the Cup Series picks video for New Hampshire. Went over a lot of this stuff in the preview video. If you want, to look over any of this, you can go watch that preview video, or this is posted up on Twitter. It's at FastCarsFM. And slowly but surely, we're creeping up to that 600 sub mark. We're still a decent way, a ways, but slowly but surely we're getting there. So thank you guys. So pretty interesting slate. You have a interesting mix of, tournament GPP plays and then kind of more cash games plays. So you kind of the first thing you have to kind of figure out is, what type of DraftKings game am I going to play? And then B, what's the type of lineup construction that I want to take? So I want to focus more on the lap leaders, the guys who can pick up fast laps, focus more on track position, or do I want to focus more on, maybe drivers who start further in the field and take more of a place differential standpoint? I think the place differential standpoint is going to be safer. It's probably not going to win you a tournament though, unless things get absolutely crazy. The jamming more the dominators in your line is going to be higher risk, higher reward. But most likely you're going to have a better chance of, maybe actually hitting that optimal lineup. So we'll talk about it. There's Busch, Logano, Hamlin, Truex, Elliott, and Blaney in the top range. Kyle Busch looks like an excellent play. He had the second fastest car in practice, really fast on the long run. And then it came to qualifying and he just missed it. So it gives you a ton of place differential upside. He also gives you a lot of lap leading upside. The only problem is he doesn't have the track position at the start of the race. So if you are playing Kyle Busch, I would advise you to play a driver who starts closer to the front of the field. That way, if you're playing that narrative out in your head of, okay, how does this, lineup, cash, how does this lineup make the optimal lineup? Hey, driver A is going to lead for stage one. And then, hey, I think Kyle Busch is going to get up there at stage two. And, think about the drivers you're putting in your line and how they're going to work with one another to help you earn points and, hopefully hit the cash line when the checker flag is waving. Logano is going to be interesting. He just didn't show the speed for me in practice. He starts 12th, gives you a little bit of place differential upside, but I'd much rather just pay the extra $200 for Kyle Busch, who starts even further back and who had much better times in practice. And Kyle Busch's driver rating is a little bit better looking at similar track types. Not that Logano's is bad. I'm going to have a lot more Busch than Logano. Hamlin's just someone I don't really think I'm going to get to today. You have to take some stands when you are playing these slates, and Hamlin's just a guy that's not really popping off for me. Truex is going to be extremely high owned. If you're playing cash games, you pretty much just want to probably jam in Kyle Busch, jam in Truex, and then kind of just build around them with other drivers that you like. Not that that's a bad, tournament option as well. It's probably going to be a very common build that we see today on Sunday. So Truex has clean air, starts up front. He's been pretty fast at similar track times. His practice times were decent. So the only thing with Truex is, he's going to be really high owned. So, potentially look at making a pivot, or if you are building multiple lines, make sure you have a couple lines without Truex in there, just in case he does run into an issue. If you are looking for a potential pivot, hey, there's Chase Elliott right next to him. If for whatever reason, if Truex can't get the early jump, most likely it's going to be Chase. Chase is extremely hot right now. He's, running extremely well. We know Chase is a driver that goes on these streaks. And when he's hot, he's extremely hot and does extremely well. And when he's cold, he just isn't, relevant. So he's definitely hot right now. He has a lot of momentum for him. I liked him as a potential pivot off of the Truex chalk. And then Blaney Blaney was someone I was really high on coming into the week. I still am high on him, maybe not as much as I was in the preview video. A couple of things are concerning. One, none of the Penske cars showed speed in practice, so they just what that tells me is that team just missed on the setup coming to the track. The only thing that's encouraging though is at least for Blaney and Logano, they were able to improve as practice went on. We saw their qualifying times get better, and Blaney's driver rating at similar track types this year is night and day compared to everyone else in the field. So I'm hoping that a lot of people are going to be concerned with Blaney's practice times and not want to play him. And we're going to get a lower owned Ryan Blaney than we should necessarily. So I still like Blaney a lot. Chastain's another interesting driver. Um, Gives you a lot of place differential upside, maybe not as likely to get up front and lead as maybe some of the drivers we talked about in that 10K range, but Chastain has been extremely fast at basically every single track that we've gone to this year. The only potential concern is he has a lot of enemies out there on the track, and I could very easily see someone running him up into the wall or potentially spinning him out. You never know when that payback's going to come back to him, but Ross is not making it easy on himself. Larson and Byron look like very similar plays. Probably more GPP options. I do like both of them quite a bit. Not a ton, but I'm definitely going to have ownership there. Larson is a lot cheaper than we've normally seen him. He's only $9,600. Had pretty good times in practice. My only fear with Larson is his similar how he's performed at the similar tracks so far this year. They haven't necessarily been great. Or Byron, on the other hand, is kind of the opposite of Elliott right now. Elliott has all this momentum. Everything is going great for him. And then you look at Byron, and he's just absolute worst luck you could have right now. Even in the Xfinity series today, looked like he potentially might win that race, and then boom, he had a mechanical issue. I think the engine blew up, and we saw he was having tires, go down too. So just eventually that luck's going to turn around, but I think his ownership's going to be a lot lower just because of his recent performances. But I think he's an interesting GPP play. I would like Bell a lot. This is a track that he runs very well at. My only fear is his pit crew. It's hard to trust. It only takes one time for that pit crew to mess him up, and then boom, he gets shoved to the rear end of the field. And it's going to take a long time to pass in this car at this track. And track position is so important, especially if it is hard to pass on the track. Well, how else are you going to pass? Well, you're going to be passing cars on pit road when you come down for pit stops or at the stage breaks. Well, if Bell's crew isn't known to be the best and has a lot of issues around it, every time he comes to pit road, he potentially and most likely will be losing spots as well, pushing him further back on the racetrack. So I have a hard time seeing him do well. Harvick's going to be a guy I like a lot. He got loose in his qualifying effort, so he just basically gave up on the lap. So he potentially could have started even closer to the front of the field. But because of that, it gives you some place differential upside. It's pretty cheap. He's a nice kind of like option 3, tier 3 driver to kind of get in your line as potentially maybe even a dominator or just a guy who can finish well. He's run extremely well at these track types. Don't really see myself getting the Reddick. He's had a big weekend. That's pretty much off the track with everything going on in the news. Not really going to be a priority DFS. Chase Briscoe is going to be extremely high owned. Very, very fast in practice. He won Phoenix. He looked like he might win Gateway before his tire went down, which are similar track types. Same thing that Kyle Busch did. He just messed up his qualifying lap. So he'll have a lot of ownership, but for good reason. Kurt should be pretty low owned. He had a really fast qualifying time. Both 23XI drivers did at the end of qualifying, but it's just going to be hard for him to maintain that track position, in my opinion. I would lean Kurt over Bubba if you had to pick one of the two. I know they're not necessarily priced next to each other, but Kurt's driver rating and finishes at similar track types is much better than Bubba's. Bubba has not finished inside the top 20 at any of the similar track types that we're using for this weekend, where Kurt has finished, I think, inside the top 10 in two of the three races that we are comparing to. So very, very extreme GPP play, maybe like 5% ownership. Eric Almirola is going to be a driver I'm still high on. He's another GPP dart. Stewart-Haas Racing is pretty good at this track. It looks like, he won this race last year. It's a completely different car, but he still runs well on these track types, and him starting seventh might push his ownership away. So I still like going there. Don't really see myself getting to Suarez. There's just too many other plays around him that make more sense to me to go to than Suarez. Bowman and Cindric are kind of in that same category that Briscoe is in. I think Briscoe is by far the best of the three of them, just based off of his practice times and his driver rating. But if you can't get up to Briscoe, Bowman and or Cindric necessarily, aren't bad options either. Both of them are going to be probably purely place differential plays, but they have the upside to get inside the top 15, the top 12, maybe even the top 10. And it's not crazy to think of, Bowman or Cindric eventually getting to the lead at some point in this race, whether it's through, pit strategy or, when a caution comes out. And if they're able to get that clean air, hey, maybe they can lead you some laps. But you don't need them to. You're not necessarily playing Bowman or Cindric necessarily to lead laps. They're just kind of more safety place differential plays. Bubba has that DraftKings scheme. Really hope they make a die cast of it. Be cool to get one, just for the channel, for the stuff that we do, but not going to be playing him for DFS. I do like Eric Jones. I don't necessarily think he's going to get a lot of looks, a lot of, ownership today. Everyone's just going to go to Bowman and Cindric in the 7K range. So I don't mind pivoting off of one of those or potentially both of them and going to Eric Jones just to get different. His car and his driver rating is pretty similar to Cindric's and Bowman's. Cindric and Bowman look like better plays, but I think Eric Jones will come in significantly lower owned than the two of them there. Allmendinger is probably going to be a fourth option for me in this range. He's kind of right on the fence for me of medium low interest. He did finish well at Gateway, even without practicing, which was pretty impressive. So we'll see, but not really going to have too much AJ, maybe a little bit. Not getting to Keselowski, Stenhouse, or McDowell. Austin Dillon's going to be another highly owned driver. He's been really just struggling this year. For whatever reason, looks like, Reddick has been getting the main focus, and be interesting to see if that shifts now with the news. But these cars have been, prepared before that news was released. But he starts deep in the field, but his practice times were deep, and I don't even think he even ran 5 laps in practice either, which means he didn't like his car. They were making adjustments on it. They came out for qualifying, and they qualified even worse than what their practice times were. So just that's going to be a concern. I'd much rather go to Chris Buescher, I think, who gives you a lot more upside. Very good at this track type, very underpriced at $6,100. And then once you get down to the value range, Haley would be an interesting pivot off of the kind of the chalky plays. Same with Custer. I like Custer a little bit more than Haley. Custer is pretty good at these track types. We like Stewart-Haas Racing a lot. If they're able to incorporate some of the stuff that they've figured out on Almirola's car, on Briscoe's car, on Harvick's car, and translate that over to Custer's car, I think he's in for a good day. And then everyone's going to be playing Ty Dillon and Harrison Burton. I like going to Harrison more than Ty, just because I think everyone's going to see, oh, Ty Dillon starts 35th, plug him in. Ty Dillon's been in the news a lot this week as well with, him and GMS parting ways at the end of this season. So I don't really think that's going to have too much of an effect on his DFS day, but pretty bad qualifying lap. I think he does. Oh, I guess Cody Ware, I think, starts DFL, but nonetheless, neither of these drivers can't really lose you points. And then I'm not really going to get any lower than Burton today. So for me, I think you find your core drivers of the maybe the non-dominators, more the value plays of, hey, I know for sure I want these two drivers or these three drivers in my line. And then I think you should try to differentiate between um, who some of those potential dominators would be. So that's the approach I'm going to take. We're building multiple lines with some of these cores that we have, and then just swapping out one driver or swapping out two drivers for another two. And before you know it, you have easily 8, 10, 12, potentially even 20, how aggressive you want to get, different variations of relatively the same, type of line. That's the way that I usually like to go about it. So that'll do it for the New Hampshire Cup Series picks video. Hopefully that was helpful. If it was, all we really ask is, just leaving a like on the video or hitting the subscribe button if you haven't already. Any final changes, if anyone does go to the rear of the field, we'll update this spreadsheet on Twitter. It's at FastCarsFM. But yeah, other than that, have a good Sunday and good luck today.